chapter, your quiz, division of complex numbers. So there's really only a couple different kinds of problems, and then we'll mix these in with some other operations. So remember that since I is the square root of -1, and when we did division before, we had to get a radical out of the denominator. So it's the same thing, a little bit easier. We just need to get rid of the I because we don't want to have a square root in the denominator. If you noticed, I already put up the -9 into the numerator. So if you move this -9 up here, we're going to multiply by 1, a 1 that gets rid of the I there. So I have -9i, 7i squared, which is -7. And then just clean it up a little bit as 9i over 7. So it's rationalized now. That means the square root's out of the denominator. You can pause and do that one over there if you want, or you can just keep following along. Okay, so I have -2 over -8i right away. I'm just going to change that to 1 over 4i because I'm going to have to reduce at some point. Got to get rid of this I, so I multiply by I over I. So this is I over -4. You could write it as -I over 4, put the negative out front, probably the form you'd see it on a test of multiple choice. Okay, so same kind of thing here. The only difference is that we have a different number there. Otherwise, you're following the same rule. You don't need to multiply by the 5. You can, but you don't need to. You're going to have to reduce it if you do. So again, the only square root is the I, so that's all we need to get rid of. So -5i squared is +5. I didn't cancel the negatives there. Either way, you get to the same spot. So that's the first kind of problem, just single I in the denominator. I'll let you finish those other ones. The second case that happens is when you have a binomial. Remember, this is the same as 3 minus 9 radical -1. So we want to multiply by the conjugate, just like we would have multiplied by the conjugate with a radical down here. So 3 plus 9i. This is still equal to 1. We still have a conjugate. Distribute the 2. So 6 plus 18i. And down here, we multiplied by the conjugate so that we don't have to worry about the middle term. We just multiply the 9. 3 times 3 is 9. Minus 81i squared, which is the same as plus 81. Just keep simplifying. 6 plus 18i over 90. Now be careful. You can divide the same thing out of all three, then you can reduce it. So I could take a 6 out of each of these. 6 there is 1, 6 here is 3, 6 here is 15. So 1 plus 3i over 15. Sometimes people write that. If it says put it in the form of a plus bi, it would be 1/15 plus 3/15 I, which would be 1/5 I. Okay. Same technique here. So -7 plus 8i. -7 plus 8i. That's the conjugate. You don't need to change this to +7. Conjugate only changes that middle number. So I distribute. I have -70 plus 80i. And then I have 49 minus 64i squared. So that's plus 64. -70 plus 80i. 49 plus 64, 113. No common factors there. Okay. So basically those several problems are the same there. Now, nothing different here, just sometimes if you see both binomials, you get confused. Some people want to multiply by 2 minus 10i. We're looking at the denominator, so we're going to multiply by -10 plus 2i. over negative 10 plus 2i. The only difference of this problem is that you're now squaring the binomial, or you're multiplying by two binomials, which just means be careful. So if you do your distributing here, you have negative 20 plus 4i minus 100i plus 20i squared. And then down here you have 100. We did this conjugate, so the outside and inside are gone. Minus 4i squared, which is plus 4. So combining like terms, these two are like terms. These two are like terms. So negative 20 and negative 20 is negative 40 minus 96i all over 104. And before you finish, you want to see, is there a number that goes into all three of them? And 4 definitely goes in there. So if I take a 4 out of here, I get 10. If I take a 4 out of here, $24. 4 out of 104, 26. And then I see I can take a 2 out of each of them. So your final answer, negative 5 minus 12i all over 13. So make sure when you reduce, you can always take the same out of each one. Do another one here, multiply by the conjugate. Otherwise the steps are just the same. Just got to be careful. Negative 1 minus 7i over negative 1 minus 7i. So multiply the first, you get negative 7 minus 49. I'm put parentheses around there. Negative 10i times negative 1 is 10i. Negative 10 times negative 7 is 70, but it's I squared, so I'm just do minus 70. All over negative times negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. It's negative 49, so it's plus 49 because it's I squared. So let's combine like terms. Up there we have negative 77, negative 9i over 50. And they don't simplify. Sorry, that's negative 39, negative 9, negative 39. They don't simplify any further. 3 and 13 goes in here, 7 and 11 goes in here, so I know it don't simplify any further. So last one, multiply by the conjugate. Multiply by the conjugate. I'm not going to multiply all that out. It's pretty straightforward. The other problems on this paper are a review of some of the complex numbers. The quiz next week will be over division and then some more complicated numbers like this that go along with it, which we've already started. You can finish the rest of the page for your homework.